My name is Clara, 22 years old, and I just graduated college alongside my twin sister Emma. While we look identical, our lives couldn't be more different. I watched from Instagram as Emma posted photos of her pristine Hawaii beaches and luxury resort room, my parents' generous graduation gift to her. Meanwhile, my gift was a shrug and, maybe next time. I nodded without arguing, but they had no idea what was coming. When they returned home, the sleek sports car in our driveway told the story my words never could. Before I share what happened next, where are you watching from? Hit subscribe if you've ever felt overshadowed by a sibling, and stick around to see how I finally stood up for myself. Growing up as the less impressive twin was never easy. From our earliest days in suburban Boston, Emma and I were constantly compared, and I always came up short in our parents' eyes. My father, James, a tenured professor of economics, and my mother, Diana, a respected cardiac surgeon, established impossibly high academic expectations from the moment we entered school. Emma took to academics like she was born for it. Her kindergarten teacher remarked that she had an extraordinary ability to absorb information, while my teacher tactfully noted that I was creative and sociable. By second grade, Emma was reading at a fifth-grade level, completing math worksheets with eager precision and raising her hand first for every question. Meanwhile, I struggled with traditional learning, finding it difficult to sit still and focus on subjects that didn't capture my imagination. I vividly remember our third-grade awards ceremony. Emma walked away with certificates for highest achievement in reading, mathematics, and science. The audience applauded as she collected her stack of awards, her smile wide and confident. I received a single certificate for creative expression in art class. When we got home, Emma's certificates were proudly displayed on the refrigerator. Mine ended up in my desk drawer after my father glanced at it and said, "Well, at least you got something." The pattern continued throughout elementary school. Emma joined the gifted program, skipped ahead in math, and was selected for special enrichment activities. I discovered my own talents in art design and anything hands-on, but these were dismissed as hobbies rather than valuable skills. When I brought home an art project I had spent weeks perfecting, my mother would glance at it and say, "That's nice, honey," before turning her attention back to Emma's latest test score. "Clara, why can't you focus more like your sister?" became a constant refrain in our household. If Emma can get straight A's, there's no reason you can't. But there were reasons, ones my parents never tried to understand. I didn't learn the way Emma did. Sitting still with a textbook was torture for me, but give me something to build or design, and I could focus for hours. By middle school, I had developed coping mechanisms. I learned to celebrate my own achievements privately and stopped seeking my parents' approval for things they would never value. I found joy in sketching car designs during class, much to my teacher's frustration. My notebooks were filled with drawings rather than notes, but somehow I managed to pass my classes even if my grades never approached Emma's stellar performance. High school brought new opportunities for both of us to define ourselves separately. Emma joined debate club, model, UN, and student government. She was preparing for an Ivy League future, and everyone knew it. I took art classes and, more importantly, found a part-time job at a local auto shop. The owner, Patterson, recognized something in me that my parents never did: genuine talent and passion for automotive design and mechanics. "You've got an eye for this," he told me after I suggested a modification to a classic car restoration project. "Most people can't visualize the way you do." Those words meant everything to me. For the first time, someone was acknowledging my strengths rather than comparing me to my sister. After school and on weekends, while Emma attended academic competitions, I learned about engines, car design, and the beautiful marriage of function and aesthetics that defines great automotive engineering. Our social lives diverged as well. Emma surrounded herself with ambitious, academically focused friends. They studied together, prepared for standardized tests, and discussed their Ivy League aspirations. My friends were a more eclectic group: artists, mechanics, and others who didn't quite fit the conventional mold of success. Though I was finding my own path, the sting of parental favoritism never fully faded. Family dinners inevitably turned into celebrations of Emma's latest achievement or discussions of her bright future. Emma was invited to the National Debate Championship, my father would announce proudly. Harvard has already expressed interest in her application. When it was my turn to share my mentions of design ideas or auto shop projects were met with polite but disinterested nods. "That's nice, Clara," my mother would say before quickly changing the subject back to Emma. Despite the constant comparisons, I never resented Emma herself. She was my sister, my twin, and I loved her. She didn't ask for our parents' favoritism, and to her credit, she often tried to redirect conversations to include me. "Clara designed something really cool at the shop today," she would sometimes say, trying to create space for my achievements. But our parents' minds were made up about which twin was worthy of their full attention and pride. By senior year of high school, our paths were clearly divergent. Emma was valedictorian, had perfect SAT scores, and had her pick of elite universities. I had decent grades, an impressive portfolio of car designs, and a recommendation from Mr. Patterson that would help me get into a good state university program for automotive design. Our futures would look different, but for the first time I was genuinely excited about mine with or without my parents' approval. College brought a true separation for Emma and me, both physically and in terms of our life experiences. Emma was accepted to Princeton, fulfilling our parents' Ivy League dreams, while I enrolled at Michigan State University for their excellent automotive design program. The contrast in our parents' responses to our college decisions couldn't have been starker. When Emma's acceptance letter arrived, my parents threw a dinner party inviting extended family and close friends to celebrate. My father opened an expensive bottle of champagne he'd been saving for a special occasion, and my mother called everyone she knew. When my acceptance letter came a week later, they offered a quick congratulations before returning to discussions about Emma's dorm assignments and course selection. The financial disparity was even more telling. My parents fully funded Emma's education, covering tuition, housing, meal plans, and even giving her a generous monthly allowance for networking events and cultural experiences. For my education, they contributed the minimum they felt obligated to provide as parents. "Michigan State is much more affordable," my father explained when I questioned the difference. "Besides, Emma will be making connections that will benefit her for life." I relied on a partial scholarship and worked 2 part-time jobs to cover my remaining expenses. Between classes, I waited tables at a campus restaurant and worked weekends at a local garage. The hours were long, but I was determined to make it work. I wasn't going to let my parents' lack of support derail my dreams. My dorm room quickly became a testament to my passion. While other students decorated with band posters and photos from home, my walls were covered in sketches of car designs, magazine cutouts of innovative vehicles, and printouts of my CAD models. My roommate Jasmine initially found it strange, but soon became one of my biggest supporters. "I've never met anyone who knew exactly what they wanted to do like you do," she told me one night as I worked late on a design project. "My parents are pushing me toward business, but I still have no idea what I actually want." "At least your parents are pushing you toward something they think is valuable," I replied. "Mine still think I'm wasting my time on a hobby." The contrast between Emma's college experience and mine was stark. Her social media showed elegant dinners with professors, study abroad preparations, and research opportunities. Mine would have shown late nights hunched over design projects and early mornings at the garage if I'd had time to post anything at all. During my sophomore year, I met Professor Richardson, who would become my mentor and strongest advocate. He spotted me working alone in the design lab, well after hours perfecting a model that wasn't due for weeks. "Most students do the minimum to get by," he said, examining my work. "You're doing the maximum just because you love it." Under his guidance, I refined my skills and began to develop my own distinctive style. Professor Richardson had industry connections and didn't hesitate to share my portfolio with his contacts. "You have a rare combination of technical understanding and aesthetic vision," he told me. "The industry needs more designers like you." Holiday gatherings became increasingly difficult as our college years progressed. Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners turned into extended celebrations of Emma's achievements. Emma just got published in an undergraduate journal, my father would announce. Her professor says she has a promising future in research. When the conversation occasionally turned to me, my parents' questions focused on practical concerns rather than genuine interest. Are you keeping your grades up? Have you thought about a backup plan? Is there good job placement in your program? They never asked to see my designs or expressed curiosity about what I was creating. During our junior year, I secured a competitive summer internship at a prestigious automotive design firm in Detroit. When I called my parents with the news, my mother's response was, "That's nice, honey, but did you hear Emma was selected for a research position at the Wilson Center? Only 3 undergraduates in the country were chosen." That summer proved transformative for my career prospects. My internship supervisors praised my work ethic and fresh perspectives. By the end of the summer, they hinted at the possibility of a job offer after graduation. I returned to campus for senior year with a newfound confidence in my professional future. Meanwhile, Emma continued to excel academically. We stayed in touch through occasional phone calls and text messages. Despite the distance and our different paths, we maintained a connection, though it wasn't as close as it had been when we shared a bedroom growing up. "Mom and Dad still talk about you," Emma assured me during one of our calls. "They just don't understand what you're doing." "They've never tried to understand," I replied. "But that's okay. I'm not doing this for them anymore." And it was true. Somewhere along the way, I had stopped seeking my parents' approval and started building a life that made sense to me. I was no longer the twin who wasn't Emma. I was Clara, automotive designer with my own goals and my own measure of success. Senior year brought significant achievements for both Emma and me, though they looked very different. Emma was on track to graduate summa cum laude with a double major in international relations and economics. She had already been accepted to Princeton's prestigious graduate program and had received a research fellowship. Her academic future was secured and celebrated. My final year was equally successful in its own way. My senior design project, an innovative electric sports car concept focused on sustainable luxury, caught the attention of industry professionals who visited our end-of-semester showcase. Several approached me afterward with business cards and invitations to interview. Professor Richardson beamed with pride as he watched his colleagues take notice of my work. "You're going to have options after graduation," he told me. "Multiple good options." As graduation approached, my parents organized a family dinner at an expensive restaurant in my college town. I assumed it was to celebrate both Emma and me completing our degrees, though I harbored no illusions about who would receive the majority of the attention. The dinner began predictably enough with my father ordering champagne and raising a toast to our brilliant daughters, though his eyes lingered on Emma. My mother asked about Emma's graduate housing options and research plans. I sat quietly picking at my food and waiting for the conversation to eventually include me. Halfway through the meal, my father cleared his throat importantly. "Your mother and I wanted to wait until tonight to share some exciting news," he announced. "As a graduation gift for Emma, we're sending her on a 2-week luxury trip to Hawaii." My mother reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope, which she handed to my sister with a broad smile. "All-inclusive at the Grand Wailea Resort on Maui, first-class airfare, and a generous spending allowance," she explained. "We're so proud of everything you've accomplished, Emma. You've earned every bit of this." Emma's face lit up as she examined the contents of the envelope. "This is incredible," she exclaimed. "Thank you so much." Then, perhaps sensing my discomfort, she turned to me. "Clara should come too. We could have a sister's trip before I start grad school." An awkward silence fell over the table. My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Well," my father said slowly, "this is specifically a gift for Emma to recognize her academic achievements and hard work." I felt my heart sink, though I wasn't surprised. Still, a small foolish part of me had hoped that my graduation might merit some acknowledgement too. "Do I get a graduation gift as well?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. My father shifted in his seat. Clara, we've always valued academic excellence and hard work. Emma has maintained a perfect GPA while participating in multiple extracurricular activities. She's earned this recognition. And I haven't, I asked quietly. My mother reached across the table to pat my hand. Your path has been different, she said, as if that explained everything. Maybe when you've established yourself in your career, we can celebrate that achievement. She earned it, you didn't, my father added with a shrug. It's as simple as that. I nodded without arguing, suddenly too tired to fight a battle I'd never win. The rest of dinner passed in a blur as I pushed food around my plate and responded to questions with one-word answers. Emma tried several times to include me in the conversation, but I couldn't summon the energy to engage. All I wanted was to leave. As we were preparing to depart, Emma pulled me aside. I'm sorry, she whispered. I had no idea they were planning this. I can talk to them about including you. Don't, I replied. It's not your responsibility to fix this. Enjoy your trip, really. You do deserve it. And she did. I never resented Emma for her achievements or our parents' recognition of them. What I resented was their inability to see value in anything that didn't fit their narrow definition of success. The drive back to my apartment was long and quiet. I rolled down the windows, letting the cool night air wash over me as I replayed the dinner conversation in my mind. She earned it, you didn't. The words stung, not because they criticized my academic performance, but because they dismissed everything I had accomplished. I had worked multiple jobs while maintaining good grades. I had secured a prestigious internship and created a senior project that industry professionals admired. I had built a portfolio and a network that would launch my career. But none of that counted as earning anything in my parents' eyes. When I arrived home, I found Jasmine waiting up for me. One look at my face told her everything she needed to know. That bad, huh? She asked, patting the spot next to her on the couch. I collapsed beside her and recounted the evening's events, ending with my father's dismissive words. Jasmine listened without interrupting, her expression growing increasingly indignant on my behalf. That's such bull, she said when I finished. You've worked harder than anyone I know. You deserve recognition too. Not according to them, I replied. Then screw them, Jasmine said firmly. Your parents don't get to decide your worth. You know what you've accomplished. The design firms contacting you know it too. Her words stayed with me as I lay awake that night. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was time to stop looking for validation from people who would never give it. Maybe it was time to recognize my own achievements, even if my parents couldn't. The next morning, I checked my email to find a message from Professor Richardson with the subject line, Opportunity Knocking. He had forwarded an email from the head of design at a luxury automotive manufacturer expressing interest in my portfolio and requesting an interview as soon as possible. The position came with a substantial starting salary and signing bonus, reflecting the company's eagerness to secure new talent. As I stared at the figures on my screen, an idea began to take shape. If my parents wouldn't acknowledge my achievements, perhaps it was time to demonstrate them in a way they couldn't ignore. I wouldn't need their approval or their money. I would create my own celebration on my own terms. With graduation behind me and my new job contract signed, I found myself with something I'd never had before: financial independence and a significant amount of money in my bank account. The design competition I'd entered months earlier had announced its winners the week after our family dinner, and to my shock and delight, my sustainable luxury concept had taken first place, coming with a substantial cash prize of $50,000. Combined with the generous signing bonus from my new employer, I suddenly had the means to make a statement. Not out of spite, but as a declaration of self-worth. If my parents couldn't see my value, I would show them in terms they couldn't miss. Professor Richardson was the first person I told about my plan. We met for coffee the week after graduation before I was set to start my new position. I'm thinking of buying a car, I said after catching up on post-graduation news. Not just any car. Something special. He raised an eyebrow. Special as in expensive. Special as in meaningful, I clarified. Something that represents what I've accomplished and where I'm going. Something that says, I don't need anyone else's validation. Professor Richardson nodded slowly. I understand the impulse, he said. Just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Revenge purchases rarely bring satisfaction. It's not about revenge, I insisted. It's about recognizing myself when no one else will. It's about creating my own celebration. He seemed to accept this, and even offered to connect me with a former student who now worked at a high-end dealership in Detroit. Anthony can help you find exactly what you're looking for, he said, and he might even give you an industry discount. Over the next 2 weeks, I researched various models considering not just performance and aesthetics, but also what each car represented. I wanted something that reflected my design sensibilities and professional aspirations, not just a flashy status symbol. Anthony proved invaluable in my search. He arranged test drives of several models I was considering and provided insights into each manufacturer's design philosophy. This isn't just about buying transportation, he told me. At this level, you're buying into a design heritage and making a statement about your own aesthetic values. The moment I sat behind the wheel of the Audi R8, I knew it was the one. The clean, understated exterior housed an engine that purred with controlled power. The interior was a perfect marriage of luxury and functionality. Every element served both aesthetic and practical purposes, embodying the design principles I valued most. This is it, I told Anthony after the test drive. It's everything I want to say in automobile form. The purchase process was surreal. I had never bought anything so expensive, and signing the papers made my hands shake slightly. But underneath the nervousness was a solid certainty that this was right. The car wasn't just a purchase. It was an investment in myself, a tangible recognition of everything I had worked for. As I finalized the purchase, Emma was sending daily updates from Hawaii. Her Instagram was filled with pictures of pristine beaches, elegant resort dinners, and stunning sunsets. She seemed to be having the time of her life, and despite everything, I was genuinely happy for her. She deserved to celebrate her achievements. In her private messages to me, she was more reflective. I wish you were here, she wrote beneath a photo of a double rainbow over the ocean. Nothing feels complete when I'm celebrating without you. I didn't tell Emma about the car. I wanted it to be a surprise for everyone, a revelation that would force my parents to see me in a new light. I arranged to have the car delivered 2 days before my family was scheduled to return from Hawaii, giving me time to prepare for their reaction. When the delivery truck arrived at my apartment, Jasmine came outside to witness the moment. Her jaw dropped as the sleek silver R8 was unloaded. "Holy shit, Clara," she breathed. "It's gorgeous." And it was. Sunlight played across its curves as I circled it slowly, taking in every detail. The delivery driver handed me the keys with a smile. "Enjoy it," he said. "Cars like this are meant to be driven." I spent the next 2 days getting acquainted with my new purchase, learning its sounds and responses. Each drive reinforced my decision. This wasn't just a car, it was a statement of identity and accomplishment. The day my family was due to return, I drove to my parents' house and parked the R8 prominently in the driveway, positioning it where it would be impossible to miss from the street. Then I sat on the front steps and waited, a strange calm settling over me. For perhaps the first time in my life, I wasn't anxious about my parents' approval. Whatever happened next, I had recognized my own worth, and that was what mattered most. My stomach fluttered with nervous anticipation as I heard the taxi approaching. This was it, the moment of truth. I stood up, straightened my shoulders, and prepared to face whatever came next. The yellow taxi turned into our street, slowing as it approached the house. I stood perfectly still next to my new car, watching as the vehicle came to a stop behind the R8. For a moment, no one moved. I could see my parents and Emma through the taxi windows, their expressions shifting from travel weariness to confusion as they registered the unfamiliar vehicle in their driveway. My father was the first to emerge. his brow furrowed as he stared at the sleek silver sports car. My mother followed her hand rising to her throat in a gesture of surprise. Emma was last, her sunburned face breaking into a wide grin as she connected the dots faster than our parents. "Whose car is that?" my father demanded, addressing the question to no one in particular as the taxi driver unloaded their luggage. I stepped forward, keys dangling from my fingers. "Mine," I said simply. The silence that followed was profound. My father's mouth opened and closed without producing sound. My mother looked from me to the car and back again, as if unable to process the connection between us. "Clara, what have you done?" My father finally managed, his voice caught between anger and disbelief. "I bought a car," I replied, running my hand along the R8's perfect finish. "I can give you the technical specifications if you're interested. The engineering is really quite remarkable." "That's not what I meant, and you know it," he snapped. "This is clearly an extraordinarily expensive vehicle. How could you possibly afford something like this? Have you taken out some kind of irresponsible loan?" Before I could answer, Emma rushed forward and threw her arms around me. "It's amazing!" she exclaimed, pulling back to examine the car more closely. "When did this happen? How did you keep it a secret?" Her genuine enthusiasm loosened something in my chest. At least one family member could be happy for me without qualifications. "Let's continue this discussion inside," my mother suggested, glancing nervously at neighboring houses. Heaven forbid the neighbors witness a family disagreement. Once inside, with luggage deposited in the foyer, and everyone settled in the living room, my father returned to his interrogation. "Explain yourself, Clara. Now." For the first time in my life, I felt no urge to apologize or justify myself. I sat calmly, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I won the Reinhardt design competition last month," I began. "First place came with a $50,000 prize. Additionally, I've accepted a position with Aston Martin's design team in their Detroit studio. The signing bonus was quite generous." My mother's expression shifted slightly. "Aston Martin, the luxury car manufacturer." I nodded. "My starting salary is $110,000 plus benefits and performance bonuses. Professor Richardson says it's one of the best offers they've made to a new graduate in years." The information hung in the air between us. I could almost see my father's mind working, recalculating his understanding of my career prospects. "Even so," he said finally, "spending that kind of money on a car is incredibly irresponsible. You should be investing in your future, not blowing it on a status symbol." "It's not just a status symbol," I countered. "It's an investment in a design philosophy I believe in. It's research for my career. And yes, it's also a celebration of my achievements, since no one else seemed inclined to recognize them." The pointed comment hit its mark. My mother flinched slightly and my father's expression hardened. "If this is about the Hawaii trip," my mother began. "This isn't about the trip specifically," I interrupted. "It's about years of having my accomplishments dismissed because they didn't fit your narrow definition of success. It's about hearing, 'She earned it, you didn't,' when I've worked harder than anyone to get where I am." "We've always supported you," my father protested. "No, you've always tolerated me," I corrected. "There's a difference. You supported Emma. You celebrated Emma. You invested in Emma. For me, it was always the minimum obligation and nothing more." Emma shifted uncomfortably on the couch. "Maybe I should give you all some privacy to discuss this," she suggested. "No, stay," I said firmly. "This involves you too, even though none of it is your fault. You deserve to hear the truth as much as they do." My mother's face had gone pale. "Clara, I think you're being unfair. We've always wanted the best for both of you." "The best according to your standards," I replied. "Did you ever once ask what I wanted? Did you ever consider that your definition of success might not be the only valid one?" My father stood abruptly, his face flushed. "This is ridiculous. We put a roof over your head, food on your table, clothes on your back. We paid for your education. You paid the minimum for my education while covering every expense for Emma's, I pointed out. You threw parties for her accomplishments while barely acknowledging mine. When was the last time you asked to see one of my designs? When did you ever show genuine interest in my career path? The silence that followed confirmed what I already knew. They couldn't recall a single instance. I didn't buy that car to spite you. I continued more gently now. I bought it to celebrate myself when no one else would. I bought it to recognize my own accomplishments. And I bought it to remind myself that I don't need anyone else's validation to know my own worth. Emma had tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, Clara, she said quietly. I never realized how different things were for you. It's not your fault, I assured her. You deserved every celebration, every opportunity they gave you. I'm not asking for any of that to be taken away from you. But it wasn't fair, she insisted. No, it wasn't, I agreed. But I'm not looking for fairness anymore. I'm just looking for respect. My mother wiped tears from her cheeks. We do respect you, Clara. Then show it, I replied. Not with money or gifts, but with genuine interest and acknowledgement. That's all I've ever wanted. My father remained standing, his expression unreadable. I think I need some time to process all this, he said stiffly before walking out of the room. An uncomfortable silence fell over the three of us left in the living room. Finally, my mother spoke. I had no idea you felt this way all these years. I tried to tell you, I said, many times. You just weren't listening. She nodded slowly, seeming to age before my eyes. Perhaps you're right, she admitted. I'm sorry, Clara. Truly. It wasn't a complete resolution, but it was a start. As I left the house that evening, Emma walked me to my car. It really is beautiful, she said, admiring the R8 in the fading light. Just like everything you create. Her words meant more to me than she could know. I hugged her tightly before getting into the driver's seat. Enjoy the rest of your summer, I told her. We'll talk soon. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror to see my sister standing in the driveway watching me go. Something had shifted today, not just between my parents and me, but between Emma and me as well. We were seeing each other clearly, perhaps for the first time. Whatever happened next, that alone made the confrontation worthwhile. The week following my revelation was tense but transformative. I stayed with Jasmine, giving my parents space to process everything I had said. Emma texted daily, checking in and offering support in her gentle way. She seemed genuinely shocked by the extent of the differential treatment I had experienced, having been too immersed in her own journey to fully notice mine. I always thought they were proud of both of us, she wrote. I never realized they were pushing you aside to make room for me. You didn't do anything wrong, I assured her. This is between me and them. I threw myself into preparations for my new job, setting up my apartment closer to the design studio and familiarizing myself with the company's current projects. The work was everything I had hoped for, challenging, creative, and surrounded by people who respected my skills and vision. On my third day, the head designer stopped by my workstation. Your concept sketches for the interior redesign are impressive, he said, examining the drawings on my tablet. There's a freshness to your approach that we've been missing. Keep pushing in this direction. His casual approval meant more to me than all the forced praise my parents had ever offered. Here my work was judged on its own merits, not in comparison to someone else's achievements. Here I wasn't the other twin, but a valued contributor with unique skills to offer. To my surprise, my father was the first to reach out. He sent a text asking if I would meet him for lunch, adding awkwardly that he wanted to talk. I agreed, suggesting a casual restaurant near my new workplace. When I arrived, he was already seated, looking uncomfortable in the modern minimalist space. He stood as I approached, hesitating between a handshake and a hug, before settling on an awkward nod. Thank you for meeting me, he began after we had ordered. I've been doing a lot of thinking about what you said. I waited, giving him space to continue. I've always believed I was doing what was best for you and Emma, he said slowly. pushing you both toward paths that would ensure security and success. Emma responded to that pressure in the way I expected. You didn't, and I interpreted that as resistance or even failure, rather than seeing it as you finding your own way. It was perhaps the most self-aware thing I'd ever heard him say. It hurt, I admitted. Watching you celebrate her while dismissing me. He nodded, looking down at his hands. Your mother and I have been talking a lot this week. She pointed out something I hadn't considered. Emma followed the path we laid out for her while you created your own despite our lack of support. In some ways, that makes your achievements more impressive, not less. The words hit me with unexpected force. After years of seeking this acknowledgement, hearing it now was almost disorienting. I won't pretend to understand your career choice, he continued. Cars have never interested me beyond basic transportation. But I'm trying to understand that it doesn't matter whether I value your field, only that you do. And clearly the industry values your contribution as well. That's all I ever wanted, I said. Not for you to share my passion, just to respect that it's mine and it's valid. Our food arrived, creating a natural pause in the conversation. As we ate, my father asked questions about my new position, my colleagues, and the projects I was working on. His interest seemed genuine, if somewhat forced, like a man learning a foreign language with determined concentration. I'd like to see your workspace sometime, he said as we finished our meal. If that's allowed, of course. Your mother would be interested too. I'd like that, I replied, surprised to find I meant it. We parted with a slightly less awkward hug, the first step in what would clearly be a long journey toward a new kind of relationship. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was an opening, a willingness on both sides to try something different. My mother reached out next, suggesting we meet for coffee. Our conversation was more emotional than the lunch with my father. She cried when she admitted how she had failed to see me clearly. I was so focused on pushing Emma toward medicine, following in my footsteps, that I never stopped to see what you needed from me, she confessed. I think I was harder on you because you reminded me of my sister. This was news to me. Your sister, she nodded. My younger sister, your Aunt Lynn, who you've only met a few times. She was artistic, like you, always marching to her own drummer. My parents dismissed her talents, just as we dismissed yours. We aren't close now, and I've always blamed her for that distance, but maybe... She trailed off, but the implication was clear. Maybe she had been the one pushing her sister away by failing to value her for who she was. It's not too late to reach out to Lynn, I suggested, or to build something new with me. I'd like that, she said, echoing my words to my father. Very much. The most surprising conversation came from Emma, who visited my new apartment the following weekend. She walked slowly around my living space, taking in the framed design sketches on the walls, the car magazines on the coffee table, and the small models I had built over the years. This is the first time I've really seen your world, she observed. It's beautiful, Clara. I can't believe I never took the time to understand what you do. You've been busy building your own life, I pointed out. That's what we're supposed to do in our 20s. She shook her head. We're twins. We're supposed to know each other better than anyone else. But I've been so wrapped up in my own achievements that I never noticed you building something amazing right beside me. We spent the afternoon talking more openly than we had in years. Emma confessed her own insecurities, the pressure she felt to maintain the perfect daughter image, and her fear of disappointing our parents. In some ways, you've been freer than me, she admitted. You stopped seeking their approval and found your own path. I'm still trying to live up to their expectations. It's not too late to reconsider what you want, I told her. If international relations and economics make you happy, that's wonderful. But if you're doing it for them rather than yourself, maybe it's time to explore other options. She looked thoughtful. I don't think I even know what would make me happy outside of academic achievement, she admitted. That's kind of sad, isn't it? It's never too late to figure it out, I assured her. And I'll support whatever you discover, just like you're supporting me now. Before she left, Emma asked if she could see my car. We went down to the garage where the R8 sat, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. It suits you, she said, running her hand along the sleek hood. Bold but elegant, making a statement without shouting. Want to go for a drive? I offered impulsively. Her face lit up. Really? 20 minutes later, we were on the open highway, the R8's engine purring powerfully as we accelerated. Emma laughed with delight as I navigated a curve, the car responding to my slightest touch. I get it now, she shouted over the rush of air. This isn't just transportation. It's freedom. And she was right. It was freedom. Freedom from expectations, from comparisons, from seeking validation, where it would never be found. As we drove along the coast, windows down and music playing, I felt a sense of peace I had been chasing my entire life. The journey with my parents wasn't over. There would be more difficult conversations, more misunderstandings, more moments of falling back into old patterns. Building a new relationship based on mutual respect would take time and effort on all sides. But for the first time, I believed it was possible. When I dropped Emma off at our parents' house later that evening, she hugged me tightly. I'm proud of you, she whispered. Not just for your job or your car or standing up to Mom and Dad. I'm proud of you for becoming so completely yourself. Her words touched me deeply. Of all the recognition I had sought over the years, my twin sister's was perhaps the most meaningful. We had started life together, identical in appearance, but different in so many other ways. Now, as adults, we were finding our way back to each other not as competitors, but as allies, each walking her own path, but cheering the other on. As I drove back to my apartment that night, I felt a sense of completion. The resentment and hurt that had driven me to buy the car had transformed into something healthier, a genuine pride in my accomplishments, and a desire to build better relationships with my family going forward. The R8 wasn't just a statement anymore. It was a reminder that I had the power to define my own success, to recognize my own achievements, and to create the life I wanted regardless of anyone else's approval or understanding. That was the real luxury, far more valuable than any material possession could ever be. 6 months into my new job and new life, the changes in both my career and my family relationships continued to unfold in surprising ways. My design work at Aston Martin had already garnered attention within the company, with my interior concept for their upcoming electric model being selected for further development. The head of design had taken me under his wing, providing mentorship that pushed my creativity while respecting my unique perspective. You bring something fresh to the table, he told me during a review meeting. You see possibilities the rest of us have become too conventional to imagine. My apartment had transformed into a true reflection of my personality, with artwork from local artists sharing wall space with my own designs and automotive photography. I had made friends among my colleagues, particularly Zoe from the engineering team, who appreciated both the aesthetic and functional aspects of automotive design. The healing in my family had been slower but steady. My father had indeed visited my workplace, walking through the design studio with obvious discomfort, but genuine effort. He asked questions about the design process and listened attentively to my explanations, though I could tell much of it remained foreign to him. I still don't understand why anyone needs a car that goes this fast, he admitted, examining a prototype on display. But I can appreciate the craftsmanship and thought that goes into it. Coming from him, it was high praise indeed. My mother had made more dramatic changes. To my astonishment, she had reached out to her estranged sister, my Aunt Lynn, after our coffee conversation. They had met for lunch, their first real conversation in over a decade. The reconciliation was tentative but meaningful, opening doors long thought permanently closed. More surprisingly, my mother had begun showing interest in my creative process. I never developed my own creative side, she confessed during one of our now regular phone calls. Maybe that's why I didn't know how to nurture yours. She had even signed up for a beginner's art class, something she would have dismissed as frivolous just months earlier. I'm terrible at it, she laughed, but I'm enjoying it anyway. Is that how it started for you, this pleasure in creating something, even if it isn't perfect? Her question revealed how little she had understood my passion all these years, but her willingness to explore it now meant everything. Emma had made perhaps the most surprising change of all. After completing her first semester of graduate school, she had approached her advisors about modifying her program to include more humanitarian aspects of international relations, rather than the purely economic focus our father had encouraged. "I want to work with refugee resettlement programs," she told me during one of our weekly sister dinners. "I realized I've been so focused on achievement that I never stopped to consider what I wanted to achieve. Making a human difference matters to me more than policy theory." Our father had been predictably resistant to this shift, but Emma stood firm with a confidence I recognized from my own journey. "She's borrowing some of your courage," my mother observed privately. "It suits her." The most healing moment came unexpectedly during a family dinner at my parents' house. My father had just returned from a conference where, to his surprise, one of his colleagues had mentioned seeing my design work featured in an industry publication. He asked if I was related to Clara Thompson at Aston Martin. My father recounted a note of wonder in his voice. He said, "Your work on sustainable luxury materials is changing conversations in the industry." "That's amazing, Clara," Emma exclaimed. "Yes, it is," my father agreed, meeting my eyes directly. "I was wrong, Clara. Not just about your career choice, but about how I measured your worth all these years. I was using a flawed metric, and I missed seeing what was right in front of me. I'm sorry." The simple apology, delivered without qualification or defense, washed over me like a healing wave. It didn't erase the pain of the past, but it created space for something new to grow. Later that evening, as we cleared the dinner dishes together, my mother touched my arm gently. "I keep thinking about what you said about respecting your choices, even if they aren't the ones I would make. I want you to know I'm trying every day to see you clearly." "I know you are," I replied. "That's all I ever wanted." The R8 had become less of a statement and more simply a joy in my daily life. I still loved driving it, feeling the perfect harmony of design and engineering responding to my touch. But its symbolic importance had faded as the real relationships in my life improved. One weekend, I took Emma for a coastal drive to a small art community several hours away. As we walked among galleries and craft shops, she linked her arm through mine. "Thank you," she said unexpectedly. "For what?" "For breaking the pattern," she explained. "If you hadn't stood up for yourself, I might never have found the courage to question my own path. You made space for both of us to be authentic." Her words touched me deeply. In standing up for my own worth, I had inadvertently created ripples that affected my entire family, opening possibilities for all of us to relate more honestly and see each other more clearly. That evening, as we drove home along the coast with the setting sun painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, I reflected on the journey of the past year. From the pain of being overlooked at our graduation dinner to the peace of this moment with my sister, I had traveled a long emotional distance. The car that had once been a declaration of independence had become instead a vessel for connection, carrying me not just to work, but to family dinners, sister outings, and new friendships. Its value wasn't in the statement it made, but in the journeys it enabled. As we rounded a curve and saw the city lights beginning to twinkle in the distance, Emma turned to me. "Are you happy? Clara, truly? Happy?" I considered the question carefully. "Yes," I answered honestly. "Not because everything is perfect, but because I'm living authentically. I'm creating things I believe in, surrounded by people who see me for who I am. That's a kind of freedom I never had before." "Freedom," Emma repeated thoughtfully. "That's what I'm still working toward, I think. The freedom to define success on my own terms the way you have." "You'll get there," I assured her, "and I'll be right beside you, cheering you on." We drove the rest of the way in comfortable silence, two sisters traveling different roads but supporting each other's journeys. The painful comparisons of our childhood had given way to mutual respect and celebration of our differences. I had learned that true validation comes from within, but also that healthy relationships reflect that self-worth back to us, creating a virtuous cycle of growth and connection. My car, once a symbol of defiance, had become simply one manifestation of a life lived with intention and self-respect. As we pulled into my parents' driveway to drop Emma off, she squeezed my hand. "Love you, sis." "Love you too," I replied. Some journeys are measured in miles, others in milestones of personal growth. The road I had traveled from overlooked twin to confident designer had been long and sometimes painful. But looking back, I wouldn't change a thing. Every disappointment, every struggle had shaped me into someone who knew her own worth, independent of others' recognition. That was the real victory, far more valuable than any luxury purchase could ever be. I had found my own path, my own definition of success, and the courage to live by it regardless of anyone else's expectations or approval. And that I realized as I drove home under a canopy of stars was the greatest freedom of all. Have you ever felt overlooked in your family, or had to create your own celebration when others didn't recognize your achievements? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below.